Hey guys, welcome back to the Life Project. Welcome back to the show. I am so happy to announce that this episode and all the future episodes will now also be on YouTube for all my YouTube fans out there. I am so sorry for being gone for so long, but we're back in business, baby. We are back. And you know, if there's anyone that I feel gets me, it's you guys. And I know it's a bit cliche, I'm like spilling my life over a microphone practically, it's a joke. But yeah, but you know how I feel doesn't get me? It's our friends. And we absolutely hate them. But before any one of you comes to get me, I'm joking. I'm just kidding. So yeah, just to put it out there, just to put it on the blast. You know, I feel like there's a common experience of having so many friends that you still feel lonely with because, like, even though you have all these people in your life that you love and you love hanging out with and you love spending time with, it doesn't feel like the type of connection that's deep enough to satisfy my craving for the connection. So, why does that happen, and does that happen to you guys? I just feel so misunderstood sometimes, even by like my very, very close friends, which I don't even think they know that I consider them to be at a stage in my life, and even some friends that I've lost in the way, and it may just be because we're so different, but like we get each other. But I just want to find somebody who gets me, like gets me completely, someone I can be so raw and comfortable with me, like just give me another me at this point. And not to say that I don't feel that way with some of my friends, it's just that I don't know if I found the person that really gets it. Like, I don't know if this is making any sense, but I don't know. I don't know if that's even possible, but we move. But also, just a quick question there. Do you find that person or do you create that connection? Because I think when I hear the discussion around the connections, like those that say, oh, I'm always looking, it's like, I actually am always looking. Like, I'm absolutely trying to find it. I'm looking everywhere. And it's like, I feel that it's one of those things that you're not going to find. Like, you develop these things over time. But I don't think I made that connection yet. And it might also be due to the fact that I've moved around a lot. Not that I'm saying that it's the only reason, but like, I think that's the main reason. But in one way or another, I just feel like people just take my actions and my own personal problems to be an offence to them. And I've just lost hope in a way to make friends or to even put as much effort as I used to. So what do you guys think? I would like to think that you can develop really good relationships and even friendships with people, even if you guys are very different people. Like, you could be polar opposites, but you still can be really good friends. But at the end of the day, that's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is the kind of feeling where you feel so understood by the other person. It's not a matter of feeling like accepted or welcomed or whatever. It's like, oh my God, wow, you get it. Like, you get me. And the feeling of being like, you really get me, this might just be more of a niche situation, just because I'm someone who bottles up my feelings. And I don't think people will ever know what I'm feeling if I don't allow you guys to see that. And there are very few people who I've shared that stuff with, but I've just always been they've just literally just let me down every single time. So it's hard to find that relatability with my friends who don't seem to have those issues. So yeah, I feel like that has kind of been eating me up for the past few months because I just feel like nobody really understands me. But you know what? This just might be my most vulnerable episode ever. Don't expect me to do it again. I beg you, please no. Anyways, I feel like I've talked about the same feeling in real life a lot because I feel like I've experienced that for years a lot. And I've been trying to figure out an answer to why I feel like that and why no connection ever truly feels enough, or like, is there even like a word for it? I don't know, but like, I guess I'm slightly pessimistic about the fact that I'm going to find someone. But I mean, I still have hope. I'm like, yeah, I hope to find that eventually, but I also remind myself that I might never end up like finding that person. So what I did, well, I did this like 5 hours ago maybe, is I began to think that what if it starts with me, like asking more specific questions to, I don't know, have a little peek inside me and just say like, ask myself little deeper questions instead of just asking like, oh, I just want someone that really gets me. But it's like, what part of me do I feel like people don't get? And I think that you can kind of narrow it down to see like what you're missing. Like you can try and find out the missing link. I might just be going on a completely different tangent here, but in my mind this all just makes sense. I don't know if it's just me, but I hope it makes sense to you guys. But yeah, and I have another question for you guys. Do you feel like people don't get you emotionally? Like, you know, I said that I did this thinking process like 5 hours ago. The process goes down like this. Like, I ask myself these questions. Do I feel like people don't get me emotionally? Do I feel like people don't get me intellectually? Do I feel like people don't get me romantically? You know, I think, like, for me, I don't think I've always found people that get me emotionally, but I've also always struggled to find people that get me creatively in a lot of ways. So for me, like, the thirst for that type of connection is like a search for someone that sees the world with the vision I'm seeing it, or like the imagination or the same curiosity as me. So for me, I think that's something I feel is missing in my life. And if you guys try this, like, it's so interesting to hear you try to find the root of the problem. I struggled a lot with that. I mean, I still do. It's not that I've like just completely lost track of it. I still do feel that feeling, but I think I've found ways to sort of distract myself from going down that rabbit hole. But yeah, I mean, we're just feeling so out of place and misunderstood. I just feel like I didn't have any super close friends throughout my life that if I were to tell them something, I would get the reaction that I wanted, or like the support that I wanted. Even now, like, I have friends, like, I do have friends. I'm not all alone, guys, don't worry. I do have friends, and I do love them. Like, I love all of them, regardless of the fact if they speak to me or they don't. But I do love them. But I do often think about the type of connection that I would want to have with some people. And to think about, like, my current friends, I wouldn't want to say they're, like, superficial friends. It's, like, the level above superficial, but not, like, super, super intimate. And I think, like, sometimes, like, is this something that can be forged over time in the sense? Or, like, maybe I just need to be more vulnerable with them, or maybe we just need to talk about deeper stuff. Or, I don't know, is this a sort of friendship that's just not going to click as much as I want it to? And I think a lot of the times we do keep high expectations for people we like or people we're friends with, and most of the time we just end up getting let down by our own selves and by our own expectations. And so I've definitely thought about it, and even now I don't really have an answer to it, and to think about it that way, I think I've come to terms with that answer, that I'm not going to find the answer that quick. I don't think this is making any sense, but I don't know, like, it's just me. I'm just rambling my emotions out to a microphone. But yeah, in my head, it does actually make sense, because, you know, like, the experiences that you guys, like, even me, like, the experiences you have shape the way you are. So it's only, like, it's the most natural response ever that you sort of search it out in the other people. And sometimes it just feels like I've gone through so much that people just wouldn't be able to understand me. Like, I don't think I've tried, but with the people I have tried, I don't think they get me, because they haven't had the same experience as me. Does that make sense? I think it does. But yeah, like, even from an early age, like, before I understood, like, how the world worked, there was already that feeling of not being understood, because my interest and the amount of places I moved, the amount of schools I changed, and even at times I felt like my family didn't get me, like my classmates didn't get me. Like, I don't know, it's rough, because I feel like there's people who support me, and I feel like people somewhat understand my situation. and who I am. But at the same time, it's hard for me to imagine that they can grasp how it really is. Like, they don't even know the half of it, so they've only scraped the surface of who I am. And if they go any deeper, I personally don't think they're going to like the person they see, or they just won't be able to relate or understand. And that's the scary part for me, definitely. And I mean, this is what I mean when I say that it's good to be aware of exactly what you're missing, because one, I think that's how you start knowing where to look for, or like what to look for in those people that they're around you, and also have those connections, because it takes an active effort to go and search for them. So you have to know where to look and what you're looking for, or you're just gonna like sort of end up wasting your time with people that just don't get you and wouldn't like never get you in the future as well. But when you're aware of what you're looking for, you can kind of start to see the signs a little earlier, because quote unquote you're not going to waste time with people that you feel aren't going to be capable and aren't capable of getting close to you. So yeah, I think for me, it's just the feeling of someone that has the same curiosity as me. I think that's what's been missing. And I think emotionally, I think somewhat, and sometimes I do feel understood in relationships I have with people. But, this is all sounding so sad. I promise you it's not. It's not that sad, guys. But I'll just let you know, I do have I do have people I go out with, like, I do have fun with my friends, but like I said, that's the thing that's missing, is the idea of someone thinking similarly to me. So that's something I hope to find more of in my 20s, I would like to say, which sounds, it might just be weird for you guys, I don't know. It might also seem pretentious in a lot of ways, but I think it's a fair point, especially if you live in your hometown. Like, there's certain points where you kind of crave a certain type of connection that you may even possibly have with people around you. It depends where you were raised. I think if you were raised in a very competitive high school nature, you might crave more emotional connection because you already have the intellectual stimulation. But I think for me, because of where I grew up, in my hometown, in my school, I think I do have the intellectual fulfillment. I just don't think I have the emotional stimulation. And I hope even to be even in an even bigger city, or being more involved in the life around me, will hopefully help me find more friends and more relationships that fill the void. Oh my god, I sound so sad. I did not mean for this to be so sad. Moving on. Another part is just the fear of not finding the people, because it's like, how do you even go about finding them? Okay, realistically, how do you guys go make friends? I think I'm a very awkward person. You wouldn't be able to tell if I met you for the first time. You wouldn't know I'm very awkward. I'm so good at hiding my emotions. I'm cold-hearted. I'm joking, guys. I'm definitely joking. But I'm sure it happens naturally to some people, and it might just not happen naturally to others. I know you can go to parties or get-togethers or whatever, but it's scary, sort of thinking that you might not find them, and if you will, when will you ever find them? And something I 100% would do more of if I had my own apartment, or just somewhere to gather people, is to host, or just have people come around. I think it's a nice excuse to get a bunch of people and be like, hey, let's go do this, I'm hosting this. So I think I would love, once I have my own apartment or place, I would love to start hosting events and get together. I think that's one of the things that really expands your social circle and just gives you company, really. And I definitely do like meeting new people, and I said this before 2 seconds ago, that I am really awkward, but I still do like meeting people and seeing where it goes. But yeah, I don't know, I feel like whenever I'm looking for a specific type of connection or relationship or whatever it is, I think I end up jinxing it, And it feels weird because I'm placing expectations on what it's supposed to lead into, or like I'm just kind of forcing it. And it doesn't always turn out to be genuine because I kind of just like to embrace everything that comes, everyone that comes into my life. But I don't know if I'm going to actively look for that, because I don't know how you could even do that. But yeah, I have a question for you guys. Don't worry about answering it to me, but how do you feel satisfied with the way you approach it currently? I'm going to give you my answer to that. I'm not devastated that there's this lack of a person who understands me. I mean, I do notice it. I just feel that a lot of my friends, or just the people around me, they don't quite understand me. And it's not always it's not necessarily such a negative thing. It's just that I can't wait to find that person who just clicks. Like, it clicks and they really get it. They really do. And I don't know if I can explain it more like articulately, or if I can articulate it better, but I just want that connection. I want to feel seen. I want to feel understood. And I feel like that's the feeling I've been chasing for a very long time. And it's hard. And there's probably some of you guys who are listening who do share that connection with me, because I've gotten DMs and I've read those texts and I'm thinking our stories are so similar, and just the experiences that we have gone through together. But it's really hard to do an online relationship thing. I might just end up getting cancelled for this. But like, it's so hard to do an online friendship/relationship thing. So hopefully I meet you guys in the future and we can finally understand each other, see each other, and I don't know, share all our existence together, including the trauma and stuff. But yeah. And that's the thing, it's like, it's difficult for your situation because it takes a lot of vulnerability and like willingness to be open. And it's not only one-sided, like, it needs to be from both people to be like, oh wow, we're actually more similar than we thought. So it's like even more difficult to find someone that you connect with emotionally. Yeah. The other thing that comes with finding people that get you eventually is, I have this fear of having friends right now. This, I know it definitely does not make sense, but when I say this is what I mean. Like, having all these friends right now that I enjoy spending time with, that I appreciate their friendship and everything, but I feel like I would end up, I don't know what's the word, like I would end up making some of my other friends feel bad just because I'm not spending enough time with them. But it's a weird dilemma when it comes to choosing how you put your time. And I mean, if you found the person who understands you completely, you might just want to spend more time with them and less time towards friends that you obviously still value and appreciate and even cherish and enjoy spending time with, but you feel like they don't get you as much. And I think a lot of people see that as a diminishing connection, as in like, oh, you guys just drifted away, we're not so close anymore, so we're not really friends. And oh my god, I've had these in so many friendships. Like, I'm still friends with you guys, but people just assume that just because I'm not speaking to them or I'm not seeing them as often, they just drift away and they think that we're not friends anymore. But it might also be my fault. Like, let's be realistic. I'm not perfect. No one is. But yeah. But in my head, it works like this. I don't think those are like necessarily like the end of the relationship. But it's just that we, like, as friends, are not as close. And I don't know. It can mean that we're just as close because our relationship can't get any closer than this, if that makes sense. So, like, I mean, there might just be a certain level to where I can say, oh, this is the maximum I can get close to you. Like, there's no more, because I just don't feel the connection. So I don't think there's anything else that will help us get any closer than this, because we've never really understood each other emotionally in a way that we have, and we might just have different like understanding and depths of that, and of the things we feel, the things we see, and that's like a natural barrier that blocks any chances of being a deeper of a connection. But now I found this person I can go deeper with, so I want to allocate more time towards that person. But it doesn't mean this other person you're friends with is any less close. And a lot of people tend to associate time spent with level of connection. So people think if I'm not spending as much time with you, that means we're not as close and we're drifting away, which has always felt really weird to me, because I'm like, I don't think so. I think with every relationship in my life, you can kind of develop it to that point where, like, it's as deep as you can go. And some, you can come together again and still be the same, like still have the same level of closeness. And I think that's what is worrisome, because I think a lot of people see it as like, if we're not spending as much time together, and that means we're not close and we're drifting away. And it's like, no, we're not drifting away, we're just both looking for something more, but we're still going to be as close as we were when we reunite. Which is why, if you're listening and if you found a friend that isn't spending as much time, I don't think you should always think about it as drifting away or you guys just not being as close anymore. I don't think that's the valid way to see it at all. I really think that you can spend a year apart and come back and just be as close. But it might just be that I'm being an optimist and that's like an optimistic way. But I think I just have a unique perspective when it comes to how I personally view friendships and stuff, because a lot of the times you do need time with the other person to still have that connection. I mean, I agree that sometimes time can go on, and when you get back together, when you see the other person, it feels like old time's sake, or it just feels the same. But I think for a lot of people, they need time spent with the other person, and they just can't pick up where they last left off without having that constant idea of not being close anymore. So that way I do think I'm being very idealistic. I'll give you an example. There are a lot of people from our high school that I guess I get along with, but then again, they don't necessarily get me, so I spend less time with them. And yes, we used to hang out a lot when we were younger, and even now, I think when we hang out together, we pick off right where we left off, but then we obviously did drift apart, you know what I mean? It's no, we're still friends, we're still really good friends. They're a really good friend, but I can't say that we're still the same amount of friends that we once were. And I mean, that's okay. And friends drift apart naturally. But I think, I don't know, it might just be a little idealistic. I think it's definitely a glass half full, glass half empty. And a lot of people tend to see the glass half empty. Another thing is understanding. Especially when you grow older, you can't balance as many close friends at the same time. I think I just had a lisp. Let me say this again. Especially as you grow older, you can't balance as many close friends. There we go. At the same time. So you have really close friendships that are the deepest ones in your life that you talk to almost every day or even every hour. And then, of course, you have the ones that those people that have known you for years, they know a lot of the parts in your life and they don't know the day-to-day. But I think even catching up with the people every couple of months is enough to give them context on what's going on in your life and what's going on in theirs. And that just keeps the connection to each other's life, because again, it's all about the context. And if you have context on the other person's life, you feel like you know what's going on and you feel like you still know them. If you don't get context frequently, then that's when you start losing sight of who they are as a person, and they become a whole new person when you meet them again, and that's when you start to feel that you're not as close to them. And so I think having fulfilling friendships begins with reigniting the degree or reducing the degree of separation by having just little touch points here and there, which I think is just enough to keep them or give you the same level of closeness without needing the same level of commitment that you might have had. But regardless, that's that thought. And that's kind of it for this episode. It's a little bit of a shorter conversation, but I think you guys will get something out of it. Hopefully I did. And I think everyone's entitled to their own perspectives and their own opinions. So hopefully you get something out of this. And maybe this isn't even something you've realised until I've talked about it. But then again, not every relationship has to be super fulfilling, and they don't always have to get you. And some relationships are just meant for fun, and some are just friendships, and some you might bond with on a different level. And that's okay. I mean, all friendships and all relationships have different purposes. But yeah, that's really the end of it. And don't forget to check out the poll where the question is, do you feel like you have someone that truly gets you? So thank you all. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you in the next episode. Bye.